That was fucking loud.
Was it?
Yeah. Okay, we're back. Mew mew. What's this podcast called?
You're doing it wrong.
You're doing it
I
wrong.
had to think about it.
We took a break and I'm a little sicky
Yeah, it's your turn.
to get sick.
I feel like everyone's been sick. That's, you know what I mean? I was sick
Yeah.
twice over the
Yeah.
holidays. Yeah, I don't know.
Well, it's not COVID. I took two tests and I just am a little congested. But happy to be here and to be back.
Same. Like I don't know where I am. We're in my kitchen today, and you
Yes.
have your new sweater that you made on.
I do. If you want to see my sweater, you can watch the YouTube version because I made this sweater with my own two hands and I'm extremely proud of it.
Run, don't walk to the video version of this podcast so you can
Yeah.
witness the glory of this sweater.
Risden watched me make part of this sweater, and this was also a sweater that I was like, I'm gonna get myself some nice yarn for the holidays. And I bought three what's called skeins of yarn, and I was like, wow, that's a lot of money. It was like $150. And then used it all up for half of the sweater, had to go back and do it all over again, and then needed yet another skein. This was an unintentionally absurdly expensive sweater. Say
I
la
feel
vie.
like it's important to delineate for our guests that might not be dykes that there is there's certain kinds of lesbians. And me, I know you're more of a boy than a lesbian, but like there's craft dykes, right? And then there's like handy dykes. And I don't know what I am, but my the running joke is if you invite me to a craft night, I'm just gonna gossip with you. Like I do not have
Mm,
any skills, and yet I now know what a skein is, even though
yes.
I've maybe haven't touched yarn in 20 years. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I like dyke fag, 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 dyke. I'm sort of skirting that line, you
Mm-hmm.
know?
I think that's fun. Dyke fag.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's cute.
Yeah. I'm not a lesbian,
No.
but dyke works.
Yeah, I strongly identify as a dyke, which is pretty hilarious. But
Why is that hilarious?
well, because I mostly date trans people. I mean, if I'm really anything of a chaser, but
Yeah.
you know,
There's a word for that. I think it's called scoliosexual.
what does that mean?
It means that you're like attracted primarily to trans people.
Oh, that's much nicer. It sounds sort of like scoliosis, which is interesting,
But
which I
it's
also have.
S, oh yeah. It's Skolio. And I think it's all, it's like a nice word for chaser. However, I do understand I mean, and I feel like it applies to me that I'm like predominantly attracted to like gender nonconformity, what I've called wobbly gender, with the hand motion. Yeah.
And then in addition to that, we've sort of talked about how I tend to be attracted to um like hypergender,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
whereas you sometimes are more attracted to people who are sort of more gender ambiguous. Is that the word? Like sort of more,
Yes.
yeah.
Nebulous. Yeah, yeah. A little like I mean, I'm really attracted to androgyny.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But I'm also currently dating like a very binary trans girl, and she's hot as shit.
We're both, yeah, we're both dating. Well, I'm not really dating. I'm sleeping with and feeding a trans woman as well, and I'm just like,
Oh,
wait,
love it.
why, what? Yeah, like for our audience, do yourself a favor and make those choices because you will be thrilled. Yeah.
It's true. It's like it's really special. Yeah. I'm dating two amazing trans girls, and I don't know
You're
how I got so lucky.
you're basically starting a band. You need like two more and you'll have like a full
It's like Max Silver and the
the
what?
dolls.
Yeah, and the dolls. Oh my God. Obviously, Max Silver and the dolls. Wow. One of them is a drummer.
I was gonna say the drummer's the hardest one to find. So once you have a drummer, you're just like you're good to go.
Yeah. Also this one this is a relatively new dating situation and I have not asked her comfort around being talked about publicly, even namelessly. So I'm gonna shut up now
Hello
and
there.
check in before I do more of that. Um, Anonymity and like privacy are tricky because I feel like, especially like, yeah, like if you leave out someone's name, obviously it's anonymous. And at the same time, like I'm trying to put myself in the place of someone of like hearing I know that they're talking about me, you know what I mean? But they're like not using my name.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know that I would feel like, what the fuck? But I think I would just
Mm-hmm.
sort of be like, ooh, that's like a weird feeling, you know?
Yeah, I am desperate to have people talk about me. I didn't grow up with a lot of attention. I'm from a big family, so I'm like, God, please somebody talk about me. But different experiences for different people.
Yeah. I don't mind. I mean, I have had to get over it with like my Instagram
Mm,
situation because I had someone once message me like, I know that, this is like rather thankless for you, but like please know that like over here in Seattle, we're having some really great conversations like born out of your content. And it was obviously meant to be like, so thank you for what you do.
mm-hmm.
And I felt that very much and also was like, wait, there's like people talking about me in Seattle?
Yeah,
What do you mean?
it's a dyke craft night, and they're talking about you.
Literally, yes, yes. The Dyke Craft Night, like consent comes up and someone's like, does anybody follow this, you know, this faggot?
I was like, I'm gonna let you say it. I'm so glad you did because I was like, please, yeah.
They think
What
they're a fucking wizard.
it's good to start off right away with cancelable offenses. You
Excuse me
know,
while I huck a loogie into an
is that what
ashtray.
that
Part of
was?
me. Yeah, sorry, that was disgusting. Ugh.
No, I thought you were eating something. No, but
No, I tried to do it off screen, but I
I'm
didn't make it.
I'm glad we're starting right away with just like things that can get us canceled. You know, just like
Oh, I mean, every day of my life. And it's been so freeing. I really have felt like I've come back to myself as I literally wrote in my journal today about how like there's like a couple people that I can directly point to who contributed to me like monitoring and scrutinizing my things that I said so hardcore that I was like constantly afraid that I was offending somebody.
mm,
And it was like it was making my relationships really challenging. It was making dating nearly impossible. And it's really confusing for me given that at the time, I had an invasive alien species living inside of my body in the form of a tapeworm. So I never was really like I look back and I'm like, "Oh my God, no wonder I like never felt safe," you know? And I see how it contributed to like certain ways that I was doing my work during that time where I was like I feel like I was trying to kind of control people with consent to a certain degree, like things that I now am like, whoa, I really disagree with that approach, you know? And like, I don't think I was ever doing it to like a super extreme, but there were things that I was like doing to try to feel safe when I really wasn't feeling safe because of this like really specific physical reason, you know?
mm-hmm.
But yeah, like letting myself have a sense of humor and put my foot in my mouth and like say stuff that and like if someone has a problem with it, that's okay. Like I've seen it in my classes, I've seen it on Instagram, I've seen it on the podcast and this one with you. Like it's just I can feel myself literally like coming back to myself. Um and it's just such a better way to live.
Yeah, like divesting from a need. I think it's interesting because we talked earlier about this sort of idea of like for me, it's like, how do we feel safe, right? Like,
Hmm.
I'm I'm hearing you say that a lot of your feeling of not safety was because of your what is the word?
Like physical state.
Yeah, your sidekick, if you will, your non-consensual sidekick. And then I also just think about how it's like, part of me is like, we're not safe. Like any illusion you have of safety is sort of like created. Like it's not. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know. And again, like finding ways to feel safe that are sort of sourced from self rather than externally. I don't know.
Right. I think like the mind fuck for me is like even as I believed that and was working towards that and felt very much like I had achieved a greater deal of that, I now understand that there was like a limit to how much I was ever going to feel safe when I had something like literally eating me from the inside. Like there was just only so much that I could like cultivate mentally, emotionally,
Right.
or
Right.
like only so much that I could work on like my secure attachment
Mm-hmm.
before like with yeah, like without getting rid of this thing that I didn't know that I had that was a constant threat to my well-being.
Yeah, because you were in a relationship with an insecurely attached invertebrate
Yeah.
that you couldn't shake. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it makes total
So
sense.
this is a great segue into what we wanted to talk about today, which is like people please. Oh, I feel like people pleasing is like how we can get in there, right?
Sure.
So what I have a lot of this stuff around like not being afraid that what I say is going to offend people and like coming back to myself and embracing my sense of humor even when it, you know, causes me to say something that maybe I later regret or someone finds offensive. It has really come from undoing people pleasing tendencies and learning to appease less.
Mm-hmm.
So I think we wanted to talk about like the overlap between people pleasing tendencies and causing harm.
Mm-hmm. I'm trying to think how to jump in without we we're trying to not cite specific examples, but
Right. Well, not site specific, you know, clients or emails
yeah,
we've
human
received,
human
but
beings we know. Yeah.
mhm.
Well, I think
Well, you work a lot with people who have experienced cancellation.
yes. Yes.
And you've mentioned that a very common, like a strong theme
Mm-hmm.
connecting a lot of them is these people pleasing tendencies.
Yeah, specifically, like a lot of people I work with have, actually, there's this person that we both know named Mars who posted something about this. It was like good boy masculinity, and he was saying that
Yeah.
like trans masculinity specifically is very good boy masculinity coded, and I find that a lot of my clients are not like egregious violent people. They tend to be, if anything, almost extremely the opposite. Like
Hmm.
um, really concerned with getting verbal consent, to the point that like I would probably, as their partner, find it annoying.
Yeah.
And like very caretakey and really like trying to be a good boy, and not a bad boy. And so it puts them in this binary where like it's interesting. Like I think they often become in their communities a safe place to act out former hurts of more violent
Yes.
transgressions. Yeah.
For the partner.
Yes, yeah. For other
Yes.
people in the community tend to like kind of go after this person when what they're this person's harms are like, we're not talking about like quote consent violations. We're talking about more like there were conversations that should have been had, or maybe you should have known better, but they're not, or things like that. But they end up being a place, like a sort of theater for people to act out former harms that were much more upsetting and violent because this person is like a nice guy or whatever, if that makes
Yeah,
sense.
totally. And I mean, I have experienced that in my work. Um, a specific area where this comes up uh quite frequently, though not so much anymore. And I think this is a testament to what I've been talking about like shifting my own mentality. But like uh people who've experienced a lot of like specifically people of color and Black people who have experienced in, like white academia
Mm.
join and then join my class, and then there's like something that happens that kind of slips into that, triggers that old wound. And because I have made myself out to be someone who wants feedback and who will say thank you for telling me, I will do better, um just as you said, like it becomes this like safe place to sort of take out, like, to speak truth to power when you haven't felt able to in the past. And that doesn't mean that there's like no room for me to do better, obviously, but it does mean that I've become kind of able to discern, like, is this my shit or is this someone else's shit?
Yeah,
I can
it's this
feel it.
right. It's this thing I think we've talked about a fair amount previously, this idea of like not conflating your level of reaction with the level of the offense. Right?
Mm-hmm.
It's like sometimes your outrage isn't in proportion to what's actually occurring because it's historical. And I see that
Right.
happen a lot. And that tends to be the fuel of a cancellation campaign or an exile campaign because we're so activated. And it's like, but what really is the activation? Like, if we just
Right.
literally objectively look down at what transpired, you know?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I feel like
Well,
this is sort of tied to, tell me if this is too hard of a pivot, but you posted today this post. I'll let you say what it was, but I told you this morning, I was like, oh, you woke up and chose violence with this post. You just went for it. Yeah.
okay, so the post said something about how like being a member of an oppressed group uh doesn't make you exempt from like being oppressive.
Mm-hmm.
Um I did change it from what I think was more violent, which was like doesn't exempt you from being an oppressor. But I really wanted to, yeah, because I wanted to like point out, these binaries and like how they're not serving us. I moved it to the adjective as opposed to the noun. So, the post was like largely about, you know, how I think I addressed like this happens interpersonally. Also, by the way, like I wrote this post a couple of weeks ago, so I don't remember exactly what it said. But so like it addresses how I witnessed this interpersonally. I witnessed it a lot online. Um, I recently saw someone go on like a tirade on Lex about this,
Oh
but
my
like
God, Lex forever. What a
I think I
fucking
gotta leave. Like Lex is
bananas.
just,
Lex is like, I can't. Oh, we need to have a whole episode about Lex, dude.
oh my
Anyway.
God, I can't with Lex. Like I I nearly ended up with like a stalker from Lex. I really Lex is like largely a sad corner of,
It
but so is like all social media.
Yeah, Lex feels like a it feels like a cuddle pile of the wounded in a way. I don't know how else
Oh
to
my God.
explain it.
Yeah, truly.
Mm. Anyway, so one of the things in the post that was really interesting to me was it
Oh, but
speaks.
also,
Yes.
sorry, but
No,
also, so
please.
this happens interpersonally, but it also happens globally as we're seeing
Mm-hmm.
amongst, and I'm Jewish, I'm a practicing Jew, and like I was speaking, yes, like interpersonally to people who do this in like their one-on-one relationships, and then also to like Jews at large, but also like anybody who believes themselves to be um a member of an oppressed group, such as cis women. So I think that's where you want to go with this. I'll leave it there.
Always. I'm like, let's talk about cis women because I'm
Yeah.
like, because it's all about me. But
Hey,
yeah,
hey, Risen, I know this is annoying,
am
but
I
no,
moving
just as
around?
you move back and forth, and that's just hard
Yes.
to edit.
Yes, thank you. This fucking chair is really soft. Um,
Oh,
no, that's fine. So thank you. The thank you. Thank you for
Thank you so
letting
much
me
for telling me I could do better.
thank you for letting me know I can do better. I'm like, I want to be able to um the yeah, the cis women thing, because I really appreciated, like, I think there's, this framing of like, I was explaining this to somebody earlier, that like a lot of framing of essays specifically is that women are victims and men are
We can say
perpetrators.
sexual assault in here. We won't get shadow banned.
Oh, okay, great. Yeah, trigger warning. We're gonna be talking about stuff. Yeah, this idea that like when women are the victims and men are the perpetrators, and so therefore any sort of, like, you see it a lot with IC. It's like this idea that like we're there to protect the actress.
Can we define our acronyms for our audience?
Sure. IC is intimacy coordination. It's what Mia and I do on set.
Mm-hmm.
When there's nudity or sex scenes or any intimacy scenes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, and I wrote this in our notes and you giggled at it, but I wrote I wrote I see is actually for men. And you did a laughing emoji. But I'm serious, because like I feel like when we go to set, I've seen it a fair amount, that what ends up happening is the male, if it because it's usually like a heterosexual intimacy scene, and the male actor ends up having to take care of the actress. And so he's checking in with her and he's really concerned about her experience. And instead, if we're there, he gets to just focus on his performance, and do his actual job, not some other fucking job,
Well, I'll elaborate a little bit on that. And also it's not like IC is actually for men in the sense that like it's not for anybody else. It's like
No.
actually for men. But it's that the calls that I have with men who are gonna do a sex scene with a woman typically go like this.
Do you want to act it out? Ring ring.
Yeah, you want to be the IC?
Sure.
Okay.
Hi, this is Mia. I'm calling for I don't know any actors' names.
Okay, let's scrap this idea. It usually goes like this. Anything about the scene that like jumps out at you, any concerns you want to, or any questions you want to ask. And then the guy says, I just want her to be comfortable.
Whatever she's comfortable with.
Yeah, exactly. And people pleaser alarms go off in my head, right? Like this person doesn't think that he's allowed to have needs around his comfort.
Mm-hmm.
Um, he's
Yeah,
going to defer to everybody else. What?
boundaries are for women.
Yeah. Right. Men need to learn how to respect boundaries, and women need to learn how to have boundaries. Men need to learn how to, yeah. Women need to learn to say no, and men need to learn to take a no.
Right,
Like,
because have you ever said no to a cis white woman, or dare I say it, a white she they? It goes great. They
oh
love
my God,
hearing
dude.
no.
One of the truly like most shocking hookups I ever had was with like an AFAB NB, where I was like, you don't ask anything. You just do whatever the fuck you want. And again, like we said this earlier, so it's not again to our listening audience, but I didn't feel violated, okay? There just was like no consent taking place. And that's a really important distinction. Like this person was like licking me, and you know how I hate being licked. I mean, it wasn't like as bad as other instances where I've been licked in like weird, like on my arm, dude.
Not the like, but so not the back liquor, but like
Not the back liquor.
but
Yeah,
this was
and like
arm liquor.
they also like weren't drooling on me like the back liquor.
Oh my god. Very
But
erotic.
ugh. But I just all this was like the first time and I just was kind of like watching them and being like, wow, like not once have you even considered. And it truly was also kind of bizarre because I felt like they were almost like dissociating in the sense that like they didn't know what they were doing to me. And I was kind of like, this is a little, but also, of course, this person doesn't think that they could possibly like do better with consent or like need to do that, you know?
Right, that's for men.
Right.
It's men need to learn consent and women need to, I don't yeah, know what their boundaries are, basically. Right?
And
Especially
then say them. Yeah.
right.
But
Yeah.
but then the other part of it is like that then there comes this expectation that like men should be able to read women's minds.
Yes.
First of all, hang on, because this binary, this is first of all, it doesn't help anybody, right?
Mm-hmm.
These binaries don't serve anybody, but they also like result in this kind of like othering quality of like, well, those people
Mm.
really need this, and like I'm not one of those people. And that results in like not reflecting. I was writing about this morning, so incoming post, like that results in not reflecting on, the ways that you are also complicit in these behaviors. Um, and then these binaries also, they like, okay, I'm trying to get us, I want us to move towards the like if someone is not able to voice their boundaries, like I think there's this idea that like men don't know how to respect boundaries, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so, and then if we just take that out of the gender binary, it's like, okay, a lot of people aren't very good at respecting boundaries. And so that's what's bad.
Mm-hmm.
But what I see a lot of is a lot of people who don't know what their boundaries feel like. So they don't know what they are. And then even once they know what they are, they don't know how to express them, or they're not able to express them clearly. And so then a lot of consent violations happen as the result of just like lack of clarity or misunderstandings.
Outsourcing. So there's a lot of like, my top should know, or
Right.
this person should know because of their gender or because of whatever fucking reason. And so it's like, I'm not supposed to know what my boundaries are. Like they're supposed to do that for
Right.
me.
So the idea is that like if someone can't respect your boundaries, they're unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
But there's not a lot of discussion because people will call me a rape apologist or that I'm say that I'm victim blaming. There's not a lot of discussion around how unsafe people who can't express their boundaries are. Like someone who can't say no to me is not a safe person for me to be in a relationship with. For someone who cannot tell me what their boundaries are is not a safe person for me to be in a relationship with because I cannot read someone's mind.
No. And this is, we talked about like in SPT, like when I do surrogate partner therapy, a lot of times people like really want to get into the like taking the clothes off erotic level stuff, because that's where they think their problem is. And I have to really start them with a lot of the wheel of consent stuff because I have to make sure that we have, first of all, a shared language, but more importantly, that they know where no is in their body and that they can say it to me, because some people really like they don't even know what no feels like, and they can't
Mhm.
say it or they feel uncomfortable saying it. And it's like we have to get that muscle unatrophied before we can move into these more challenging things, you know?
Totally. I went through that with a sexological body worker and it was incredible. And I was on the floor sobbing. Like it was like so unfamiliar in my body and it was so challenging for me. And it felt like that ancient kind of
Mm-hmm.
like feeling of, that I've only maybe otherwise had like in deciding to literally go back to temple and like sobbing with my rabbi on the floor playing Legos. Like, because I was like, Resma Menakem says if it's hysterical, it's historical.
Historical.
Yeah. So that kind of like hysterical crying where I'm like, I don't know what's going on. Like,
Ancestral grief. Yeah.
right. I had that experience when my dad told me right before my bat mitzvah, he came into my room to say goodnight and he was like, I have to tell you something. I felt like you should know this before you have your bat mitzvah. I don't believe in God. And I just was like uncontrollably sobbing. And I remember thinking and even trying to say, like, I don't know why I'm this upset. Like, I'm like logically in this moment, not upset, like at the forefront of my mind. And yet I'm sobbing. Like, I don't understand why this is happening. But he literally like began to unravel my trust in authority,
Mm-hmm.
like it gave me permission to like question everything, but it also made me distrust a lot of like what was being told to me. Um, it gave me choice, like, oh, I get to like choose to believe this or not. Um, yeah, it was this like massive unraveling.
Which is, it's
But
interesting because that ceremony is so about like coming into adulthood, right? And it's like
yes,
the actual thing of being an adult and not a child is like having autonomy and choice, right? And
right.
it's both exciting and also like devastating
Yes,
as you experienced. Yeah.
right, right. But so this no thing, right, is like, I think there's a way, excuse me, that there a lot of people learn about consent and they're like, okay, so like I just have to be easy to say no to. You know, like I just want to learn to, I just have to learn to take rejection well, how to respect people's boundaries. And then like especially when I start teaching nonverbals, I think for some people it's like, oh, okay, like this is going to help me understand the things that people can't say. And it's like, yes, and like you get to decide if someone is safe for you to be in a relationship with. Like, yeah, learning about consent is great so that you can be as safe of a person for other people. But that's also like the people pleasing impulse is like, how do I make sure that I'm treating other people well? And
I
the
don't,
what comes after that, you know, that often is a lot more challenging is like, wait a second, I also get to, like, not everyone gets to know me. Not everyone gets to be intimate or close to me. And what are my criteria for that?
yeah, it reminds me of a client I worked with who works in the BDSM space. And one of the big things we worked on was them vetting their bottoms because a lot of rope
What does that
bottoms.
mean?
So, meaning like finding out, can this person say no to you? Finding out,
Oh,
does this person
oh,
actually
vetting,
vetting?
vetting.
Yeah, yeah. Do they know what they want from the experience? Are because I think, and you know, as somebody who plays as a sub a lot too, I can speak to this. There's a lot of sort of just throwing yourself into the pool and being like, well, they're in charge, they know what to do. It's like yeah, but you're putting them in you're putting your top in a terrible position by doing that. You know what I mean? You're giving
Mm-hmm.
them no framework to work in, and then anything you experience is somehow their responsibility. It's a fucking falsehood, you know.
Yeah.
I think too, it's interesting with the people pleasing. It makes me think sometimes people maybe want to learn consent so that like they can never upset anybody. Do you know what I mean?
Yes. Yes. And never make anyone uncomfortable.
I will never hurt anyone again.
Right.
We did it, Joe.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's not only like not possible, but it's like it's this perfectionism impulse, you know. I think a big part of like I'm seeing a way that a lot of people want consent to be like math. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, you know, well, like if I just do it like this, then I get the right answer and then bingo, you know. And then I was thinking about how consent really is less like math and more like an English class where like or an art class where you learn to interpret, you learn to have subjectivity. You know, math is rather objective, right? There's like certain, you know, maybe some subjectivity comes in when it's like, well, 2 + 2 is 4, but so is 3 + 1, you know, 4 × 1, 2 × 2. Like there's like different ways to get to the same answer.
Sure.
But like at the end of the day, it's really this like, there's only so many options. With consent, I think of it more like, and I compare consent to creativity all the time. I think they're really intimately linked. You know, it's much more about it's less about is this right and more about do I like it. It's more
Mm-hmm.
about like learning what my desires are, what my needs are, and then learning to find my voice so that I can express myself. Like and then being able to go, you know what, like the way that I'm communicating is just not compatible. The way that I need to communicate is not compatible with the way that this person needs to communicate. Like I gave you the example of, you know, I'm not um you know, even as the consent person, like I'm not so into that much verbal consent. Like, yes, the first time, maybe the second time as we get to know each other, but my goal is to like cultivate enough trust with someone that they can be a little bit entitled to my body, that they can take a little bit of ownership over my body, and that we can communicate largely non-verbally because there's trust. And that I trust that I will speak up, like that is so much more empowering than the mentality of like, well, they should ask, because I cannot I one of those I can control and one of those I can't.
Yeah, I think it speaks to this is, I wouldn't say it's a pet peeve, but and I don't have a lot of casual sex, but in the past when I have, sometimes people want to give you like a real debrief on
Yeah.
everything they want and whatever. And I'm like, I really just want to know like what your hard limits are and what language to use. Let's just start
Right.
there. And have, we talked about this before, it's like sex is play. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like, and when we were, and it's for adults, and when we were kids and we played house or we played fireman or whatever the fuck it is we played, we would change the rules as we went. We'd be like, okay,
Yeah.
no, now you're Shredder and I'm Donatello or whatever. It's like, and it's like we need to have some of that give. And it's like, I don't really want to be Donatello, but I was Donatello last time, so I'm going to let you be Donatello today. There's this give and take and sort of thing that I think people want to have sex right, or they want to
Right.
do it, and that extends to larger. We want to be right, we want to make everybody like us. But it's like
Mm-hmm.
having some trust in yourself and in the relationship to be like, there's room for me to fuck up, there's room for me to be like, oh, you actually
Yes.
don't like a tongue in your ear, but you still like me,
Yes.
you don't like that, okay, my bad, never again, it's okay.
Right. Right. Yeah, I think, there't this idea that like we can, with consent, we can eliminate risk. And I
Mm-hmm.
I just like we gotta get out of that. Like, being alive on the planet is risky. Being relationships are risky. Sex is risky. These things are risky. And we take these risks not knowing what we're agreeing to, but knowing that there are risks and
Yes.
that those risks are going to reveal themselves to us along the way. Um,
Yeah.
there's risk aware consensual kink, but like I feel like we really gotta expand that into just like friendships, like family like it's these are risks and they're risks that we take because we want sex, love, intimacy, connection, etc.
Attachment, attunement, yeah.
Yes.
And it's like we talked about earlier, it's like I feel like some people want to bumper, they want to put the bumpers up in around the world. It's like they want everything, they never want to experience, it's this thing with like conflating hurt with harm too. Like if
Yeah.
somebody, like you have somebody says something you don't like, or somebody isn't able to meet a commitment they made, and it's like I'm hurt, that doesn't mean that there was harm, right? But what,
Yeah.
right, or like I don't know, I think there's this desire to make the world really safe. And I think about my sponsor in AA always says, get hurt, like you got to get hurt,
Mm,
like that's the whole fucking name of the game, especially in relationships, romantically, friendship. We're
yeah.
just out here opening our hearts to people.
Well, yeah, there was something that I learned about in studying attachment theory that like secure attachment doesn't come from like a lack of conflict. It comes from repair. And like, so if you never have conflict, like that relationship is likely actually less secure.
Right.
And I like what you said that like hurt does not equal harm. And I want to look at like regret does not equal blame. Because I feel like there's like a lot of, I'm thinking about how, let's say someone doesn't ask about something and the other person like doesn't speak up and they let it happen. And then after the fact, they're like, well, you should have asked.
Mm.
Like, yeah, ideally, sure. But like also everyone has different things that they ask about, like someone might ask, can I touch you here? And I think they mean they like want to finger me and they mean they want to go down on me. And then I can in the moment be like, "Oh, that's not what I thought you meant, but like is this okay with me or not?" You know? But like they asked for what they thought they needed to, or what they wanted to ask. Um
Like they thought they were being clear, there wasn't like
yeah,
malintention, and there was
right.
language fails, and then you're like, oh, I'm in this thing now where I thought they meant something else, and it's kind of on me to be like, oh, actually, like that. Or even just like, you can fucking change your mind. I
Right,
thought
of
it was
course.
chill, but it's not. Yeah.
Yeah, and that like for me to then afterwards be like, well, you didn't ask specifically how or with what part of your body you were going to touch me, like where's my agency in there?
Right. And
Like,
and it's like, I love this because, when you mentioned earlier, you're like, people think I'm a rape apologist. It's like, no, that's not what we're saying. But it's this thing of like, is this somebody you can say no to? Like, that should be a question we ask ourselves before we engage with people. You know what I
right.
mean? Like, do I feel comfortable being like, I don't want you to do that because that's our part of the dance, right?
That's
As
right.
well.
So regret and blame, I think having those taken apart, because I think the feeling of regret does not mean that someone is to blame
Mm-hmm.
necessarily. Like I may regret something and that might indicate to me that I don't want to do it again,
Mm-hmm.
or that I just learned that I don't like that particular thing.
Or that, like, now that you have more wisdom, you wouldn't agree. I mean, the amount. Okay, Mia. Here's some real elder millennial tea for you. When I went to Sarah Lawrence, you may have heard of it. Mia
Uh-huh.
and I are both Sarah Lawrence dropouts. So I went to Sarah Lawrence.
Well, it's true.
Anyway, um, I went to college having like not a lot of sexual experience, and so I decided that I needed to log some hours. So what did I do? I went on Craigslist and I banged like a small handful of guys in their early and mid 40s in Manhattan,
Whoa.
because I was like, who knows how to have sex? This is how little I knew at the time. And
Wow.
I look back on that, and I don't think any of those guys were like bad. You know what I mean? I'm like, that's a little icky, but it was
Yeah.
totally consensual. Would I make that decision now? Would I encourage anyone else to make that decision? Probably not. But having regret doesn't mean that that person, those guys were bad guys. They were, might be a little opportunistic, but you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? Like,
Yes. Yeah. I mean, and yeah, like whether it's like a particular activity or an entire relationship, you know, like there's regret and it just doesn't necessarily mean that anyone is to blame. It can mean that I learned something new about myself. And
mm-hmm,
I think that a lot of times what happens is that people like collapse things
mm-hmm,
into like, if I regret it, then it must have been assault, or like, even the binary of like it's either rape or not rape, right? And like we talked about like the idea of like being assaulted and then feeling like I okay, like I dated this guy who was much older than me. There were a lot of power dynamics at play, that were like hot for me to explore, and I think hot for him also. But he kept putting a dry finger up my butt,
I love how
no
you
matter
always preface it with dry finger, right? You're like, the finger was
because
dry.
butts don't self lubricate. But also like the point of the story is like I kept saying like I do like a finger in my butt. Just please use lube, like
Right.
any kind of lube. I don't care where you get it. I don't care if it's from your mouth. I don't care if it's artificial. I don't care if it's from my pussy. Just like get your finger. Don't stick a dry finger in an orifice that doesn't lubricate.
You dummy.
Right. Something a person would know had they ever had anything in their own butt, but that's beside the point.
Hello.
So, so, well, and also like the conclusion of this story, the finale of it is that like the final time that he put a dry finger in my butt, I screamed at him, lube. And he was like, I love when you get mad at me. And I was like, oh, fuck you.
I hate
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Right. So like that was an instance where by definition, it's assault to like put a finger in someone's butt without asking and then to like do it in a way that they've repeatedly asked you not to do it, right? The
Right.
first time he did it, he just stuck it up, like didn't ask, didn't do and nothing. Just put a finger at my butt. And I was really surprised. And I did that thing in my mind, that people pleasing like thing where I was like, he must he must just not know. He must just not know.
That's what my people pleaser voice sounds like. It's like
Yeah, like
justifying other people. Well,
maybe.
you know, stupid bitch, and he knows more than I do. Yeah.
Right, right. And like he's older than me. Like he must just not, it's a different generation. Like
It's
he must have not
just
have done
saying
butt
it's a
stuff.
different generation as an excuse for the people you sleep with is so funny. And it's so specifically worker coded. Like, I'm like, Mia,
Mm.
that's very sex worker coded thing to say.
Well, we did hire a sex worker. That was like I believe my only experience thus far with a sex worker was that we hired a sex worker to tell him what to do to me. And this is a story that I've written a little bit about, and it's in my book. At the moment, it may be removed, but it's currently in my book, where we hired a sex worker. This is a little bit of a tangent, but it was my friend, and I called her and I was like, listen, I just want to give you like a little bit of background so that, before we do this, like one thing is that he's married, this is somewhat casual. So, and like it's an open marriage, like blah blah blah. But just like, please don't ask us to like gaze into each other's eyes and tell each other we love
Right.
each other. Like that's not what this is. And also, I do like a finger in my butt. However, he keeps putting a dry finger in my butt without asking. And she goes, "Oh no, no, no." And she's like and she's like, "Oh, honey, I
Right.
I I got you." And I was like, "Okay, great." So then she comes over, we do the thing. She guides him to like, this is gonna get really graphic. So she guides him to like finger me in the front and get his finger all wet, and then asks him to like take out that finger and like move it towards my butt. And he does some kind of like feat of gymnastics where he like tries to leave that finger in my vagina and use his other hand, his dry hand, and he's like on his elbows, like lying down. So like physically nearly impossible. And he's like trying to, yeah. So he's trying to get his dry hand down into my butt. And I've already asked him numerous times at this point to use lube. And I reach down as gently and calmly and sweetly as I possibly can. I say, "This hand." And he
You
pulls out that.
fucking idiot.
Exactly. Exactly. And so then it was like the next morning that he woke me up going down on me. Yet another thing that we did not ever discuss, a thing that I love when it's been negotiated.
Discussed. Yes.
Yes. But he wakes me up by going down on me, and I'm like half asleep, and he's like, "Tell me what to do." And I'm like, "Can you do the circles?" And he's like, "Don't ask, tell me." And I'm like, "Do the circles." And then he does it, and he's like, "Okay, keep telling me what to do." And I'm like, "Just keep fucking doing it. Like, what the fuck?"
Right.
So, but then I'm like, "All right, get on your back. I'm gonna sit on your face." And I sit on his face, and this guy takes a dry fucking finger and tries to stick it up my butthole, and I pull it away, and I scream, "Lube!" And that's when he says, "I love it when you get mad at me." And I was like, "Oh, so you're like pissing me off to get me to dom you."
Instead of just being like, it turns me on when you're mad at me. Can we play that you're mad at me?
Exactly. Exactly. He just actually tries to piss me off. So,
Mm-hmm.
and that was the last time we slept together. Like I ended it after that. I was like, this is so, and I ended up running into this friend, the sex worker on the subway. And I was like, she was like, "Hey, like, what's up? How did that end up going?" And I was like, and I told her like he tried to use the other hand, and she was like, "What the fuck?
Yeah,
What the fuck?"
I'm clapping as your friend for you being like, and I never slept with him again. It's like that's the end of the 17 magazine version of this
Mm-hmm.
story. I'm like, what did
Mm-hmm.
we learn? What did we learn from this? Yeah.
Oh my God. I mean, there's like so much more to this story too, but I won't go into it. But the point being that this was an instance where like that is assault. Like putting a
Mm-hmm.
finger in someone's butt without asking, especially a dry one, excuse me, is assault.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, I didn't leave this feeling violated. And like, I could have wrecked this guy's reputation. I could have probably destroyed all kinds of things about his life, which is another reason why I feel like when people talk about power dynamics, I'm like, we don't talk much about the vulnerable position that a person with more power is in, and the power that someone with less, systemic power often has, because like I could have destroyed that guy's life, and I wouldn't do that. I mean that's like absolutely atrocious to me. But I recognized the power that I had in that situation and the vulnerable place that he was putting himself in by acting on his feelings for me. Um, but yeah, so the point of like I was assaulted in that scenario, I didn't feel violated. I didn't feel traumatized. My conclusion was this guy's a fucking idiot.
Yeah, we hate him, or I hate him.
Yeah, and I'm not going to do this anymore, you know?
Right. And I think, this speaks to this larger thing that I mentioned to you earlier, which is this, in 12 step, we have a lot of like adages, I guess, one of which that used to really piss me off when I first got sober was feelings aren't facts. And it made me
Hmm.
so angry because I'm somebody who feels really deeply and has a lot of identity around like feeling really deeply. So I
Pisces.
yeah, that's me. So I was like, fuck you with this like patriarchal bullshit, my feelings matter. And it's not that your feelings don't matter, it's that your feelings are not reality. Like, I've had situations where I've felt really violated, but there was no violation that happened. And like you said, I've had situations like I shared about, I somebody put their finger on me, in me on stage in Vegas, and in the
Mm-hmm.
moment I didn't feel violated at all. I was just like, who let this guy in here, and where are the bouncers? Like, it my feelings, but it was a fucking assault. Like,
Mm-hmm.
your feelings don't always indicate reality. And I think a lot of times people conflate, they think that their feelings are a barometer for reality, which unfortunately they just are not.
Yeah. I think the reverse is also true where
Mm-hmm.
like you can feel super violated.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, right, that both are true. You can like not feel violated when like you were assaulted,
Yeah.
but that doesn't necessarily mean that you should then, that's not a domino being flicked that like, oh, well, then you should press charges and you should report it and you should whatever, whatever. It's like, well, how do you feel about it? Like, I
Right.
just feel like I don't want to do this with this guy anymore. I think he's fucking stupid.
Yeah.
And he's like likes to push boundary. Like it's information for me, right?
Yeah,
More
like
than
for
like,
me, I was like, this club is not really that safe. Like, where are the
mm-hmm,
bouncers? And why
mm-hmm,
is this the kind of club where this? I've never had something like that happen to me before. Like, when I dance in New Orleans, if somebody put their hand on me, it would be three bouncers on that person. You know what I
mm-hmm.
mean? So I was like, oh, I
Yeah,
just don't want to work at this club anymore. That was the
yeah,
information.
yeah.
Yeah.
I also want to mention, this was a situation in which I started to understand, or I sort of came up with the language of like, rather than feeling like my consent was violated,
Mm.
even though like in very literal technical terms it was, what felt more accurate, feels more accurate even now, is that consent wasn't taking place. And that's been really helpful language for me where I'm not like, you're a consent violator, like you're an abuser, right? I don't really use that language. Like you won't hear me use that language. I was also writing about that this morning, like why I don't use that language. For the same reason that I feel like, it leads to this like othering of like, well, those people are abusers, and then we stop reflecting on our own behavior.
Mm.
But um what felt more true was like the conversations about consent were missing from the relationship.
And I feel like that happens. I've seen that a lot with restoration and repair clients. It's like, the fault was not that you did something wrong, it's that a conversation should have taken place before this was engaged in, and it didn't. And now there's ambiguity and feelings, and we're trying to sort of forensically go back and see like why these feelings are occurring. And most likely it's, as you said, historical, because they're out of
Mm-hmm.
proportion to what really happened. But had we had had consent taken place before, that we might not be in this position.
That's right. That's right. I think also this is something that my dear friend Bahar, who
Obsessed with Bahar. Bahar for
Bahar
president.
for president.
They wouldn't do it.
No, no,
They'd be like, I'm not fucking taking that job.
no, no way. Honestly, they have better things to do. Like make tinned fish videos on Instagram. My favorite thing
Play a
on
sock
Instagram.
puppet in your musical. Yeah.
Yeah, play my tapeworm. And sing with the most angelic voice I've ever
Mm-hmm.
heard. Um, uh, so Bahar once pointed out to me because I was talking about someone who said that I trigger her. Like, you trigger me.
Sorry, and now we're
Sorry,
gonna get
but
canceled. It's, yeah. I'm like, oh, okay, baby. Welcome to reality. We gonna
I
figure it
know.
out here.
Yeah. And Bahar so beautifully pointed out that, by definition, being triggered means that you are having a disproportionate reaction to what's happening right now based on something from your past.
Thank
And
you.
what that means is that those feelings and those reactions are your responsibility to manage.
Yes, church. I swear to God.
Mm-hmm.
It's,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, all the time. I'm just like, wait, what? I find my experience is often like, I'm like, what's happening? What's happening? What's occurring in this moment? Because the reaction you're having to what's happening is not the reaction I'm having. And that's not to say that we're not entitled to different perspectives, but I'm talking about just like I'm at a 2 and you're at a 10.5. And like, I don't
Right.
know. Did I miss, like, I'm literally like, did I miss something?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Hysterical, historical,
Yeah.
for real.
Resma.
Um, I have to go talk to
Yeah,
a
yeah.
client, speaking of
Okay.
which.
Wow.
And
Oh, okay.
also, we didn't introduce ourselves. Should we do that?
Oh,
Do you want to do it at the end and then put it at the top? What's the right way to do that?
I don't want to do that kind of editing, man.
Great,
Let's
great.
just, I'm Mia Schachter. I use they, them pronouns. I'm a writer, consent educator, intimacy coordinator, and artist.
I'm Riston Roberts. I use she, they pronouns. I'm Mia's friend. I also I'm also an intimacy coordinator, consent educator, surrogate partner therapist, and hoe about town.
Love it.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks for listening. Thanks for doing this with me, Riston. We're back on our shit.
Back on
So
our bullshit.
yeah. So we're gonna do some 8 episode seasons and then take some what did I say? Hiatus.
Hiatai. I don't. Sure. It consent. It's like English. Who
Yeah.
knows?
Who knows? Make it up.
I
All right. See you later. Bye.